Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook. This evening, we're going to have a conversation about a topic that has been of strong interest to me and something that has tended to cause, for me anyway, some challenges. I look at what's been going on over the last, a year or two, maybe longer. And unless you've been living in a cave somewhere or under a rock, you've probably seen this as well. Whether people are engaging in discussion about religion, economics, social issues, politics, they've gone away from conversation and discussion in more of an attempt to understand each other's point of view, to shouting matches and pushing matches, and it gets to be a very interesting, antagonistic, and sometimes violent and volatile situation. And that's something that I think needs to change. And so today I am pleased to have with me three gentlemen from an organization called Braver Angels. And we're going to talk about this sort of thing. And we're going to focus in the area of political realities as part of it. So with me today are Paul Norris. Paul, raise your hand up there so people can see you. I've got Maxime Shogren, who's down in the lower corner, and then Carlos Hernandez. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here on Reference Point. I greatly appreciate this. Now, all three of you are members of this organization called Braver Angels. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, I'm not so sure that I know the Braver Angels as an organization was a very new thing for me to learn about. And I'm curious, I don't think most of my people that watch this show may know about it. So can we start this conversation by maybe someone, telling me a little bit about what actually is this organization called Braver Angels? Carlos, you want to start with that?
Actually, I defer to someone who's been around longer than myself, and that would be Paul Norris.
Okay. Paul.
Okay, so Braver Angels is an organization that primarily works to get people to talk to each other across the political divide. Most specifically, we focus on red-blue, liberal, conservative. The goal is to give people a different kind of experience speaking to people on the other side than they will often get through avenues such as social media or family conversations, whatever. We have numerous kinds of workshops. One of our premier workshop is the red-blue workshop, where we get together about 8 people from each side, and we have a real structure for the workshop to help people find a way to express themselves and actually hear each other. We have several kinds of skills training workshops for talking to the other side. But basically, what we're all about is getting people to have civil conversations with each other across a lot of different divides, and not just red-blue, but also different cultures, different races. So we really seek to get as much variety as we possibly can, although I will say, yeah, it's almost entirely within the context of the United States of America.
Right. Got it. So how old is the organization? When did the organization start, and what was the catalyst for this? Because this things that you're talking about in terms of trying to get people together to have more coherent conversation and listen to what's going on from another person's point of view is not a new concept. What prompted the initiation of Braver Angels? Who wants to take that one?
Since I've been around the longest, I should probably, but see, none of us have actually been around since the beginning of the organization. The organization, I've been around, I think, 2 years. The organization started sometime before that. For example, I wasn't at the first national convention. Mm-hmm. So none of us here have direct experience of how the organization started. That said, I'll mention the 3 people who did start it. David Blankenhorn, David Lapp, and Bill Doherty. Mm-hmm. Bill is a family therapist who decided to apply the principles of therapy, family therapy, couples therapy to these kind of conversations. That's how the workshops were created. And David Blankenhorn has a pretty long history in the political arena. But again, how it actually started, we're probably not the best people to answer that question. Then again, I don't know, either you guys have any stories, that you've heard about it that you want to pitch in with?
I've heard a few stories. I'm not sure where it was seeded, but it began to grow, let alone blossom, on a bus tour.
On a bus tour?
On a bus tour, I'm told. Yeah. A few of them, that's what they did. And I'm not sure where in America they did it, but I'm thinking of what the presidents used to do. They would hop on a train,
sure,
go to the caboose or in the back and begin to speak. Well, this group did it via bus. We were going to do it again last year. And of course, COVID hit.
COVID got in the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then also they've had leadership retreats, which I believe Paul has attended.
Right.
I attended, as Paul mentioned, a Red Blue workshop. So I was baptized in the Church of Braver Angels. That might offend some blues out there that I use that kind of language, but I was baptized in a Red Blue workshop in Alameda, California, pre-COVID, and that was confirmed at a convention. And here's the point before I switch to someone else. I finished the workshop in Alameda, and a woman came up to me and says, "I need a red date." I said, "What?" And she was not flirting with me. She goes, "I need a red date." I go, "What does that mean?" "I can't go to the convention, and I really want to go unless I bring a red." So I thought about it for a few days, signed up. I was her red date. I put her name in my registration packet, and that's how they ensured red blue balance at the convention 2019, Washington University, St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow, interesting.
Yep.
I had read on the organization website. Now we'll put the organization's website prominently on the screen here during the course of the show. But I'd read on the website something about one of the catalysts or the precipitating incidents had to do with the 2016 election and the sort of angst that appeared to be in the country based on different viewpoints of the results of that election. And so, have any of the three of you had any experience with this kind of challenging discussions? I mean, before Braver Angels and then after Braver Angels, what have you seen? Maxime, what you're shaking your head vigorously. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Just because I love this kind of work, I've done I'm trained as a mediator, which is a little different from the modality of Braver Angels, but it's still the idea of people listening to each other in a civil fashion, even if they hate each other, as a matter of fact. There are other organizations that are doing this kind of work in a different way that I'm involved in. And at a certain point, I was involved with congregation-based organizing, community organizing. And the methodology for that was actually developed by an organizer named Saul Alinsky in Chicago. He was a mentor for Obama. And then my synagogue and other religious organizations in my town, Berkeley, took on that mode of talking to each other, which is basically, David, we're in the same congregation. Let's spend an hour. Tell me your story. And then from your story, I'll find out what your joys are, what your fears are, what your pain is. And then I'll unite people with common interest within the congregation. And then those people will unite with people with comparable interest in the town. And then you do civil action and political action. So the idea of talking to people, I'm curious to talk to people who are different than me. And the idea of doing that, I've done a lot, and I suspect Paul and Carlos have as well.
David, may I add something to your question, please?
Sure.
I joined in 2019, but I was triggered in 2016 I'm a former Democrat, and I voted for Trump. And in my neighborhood, 94131 zip code, there's a storefront. There was. It's still store's still there. I don't want to offend your audience. I won't put the picture up. They hung 9 Trump dolls in effigy by a rope on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2016. And I walked in and I asked the storekeeper, "What is that?" He said, "That's a sales display." I said, "Would you have hung African-American dolls?" Silence. "Would you have hung rabbis like that?" Silence. So I was triggered. That was an example to me, of what tolerance looks like in San Francisco, and I'm being facetious.
Okay.
And that's why I joined Braver Angels, because it was a safe place to join.
And I live in Berkeley, by the way, and we won't let Carlos into our town. Obviously, tarred and feathered, you name it.
So, well, what's interesting here is we clearly have just amongst the panelists here differing perspectives and viewpoints. So, and Maxime, with some of the experiences that you alluded to, I'm guessing that you were directly observant, if not involved, in individuals who were engaged in a volatile situation and trying to help them work through that, right?
Sure.
And Carlos, your experience that you just delineated is very clearly folks who have opposite perspectives on something and then potentially clashing. So talk to me about what it is within Braver Angels that makes it possible for people of these different perspectives to be able to sit down together and engage without this level of volatility.
Let me jump in on that. So number one, what is unique about Braver Angels is power sharing. There are equal numbers of reds and blues at every level of the decision-making part of the organization. And this ends up being extremely important. I had prior experience of, at least one organization that wanted to do the same kind of work. But every single person who was employed by that organization was a very, very deep progressive. And I participated in, some of their events and just quite quickly got discouraged. And, without going into a lot of details, clearly there was not a level playing field. The playing field was fixed, tilted, and the goal on one end of the field, I'll use this metaphor I'm making up in the moment. There was a brick wall in front of our goal post, our goal area. So couldn't score, no way to get a goal. And so Braver Angels has much more of a level playing field. And the level playing field enables people, particularly Reds, to actually truly be able to express themselves. Also part of the technique is we use fish bowls so that each side is speaking within their own group and the other group is listening. And that is a very heart-opening kind of experience because people get to talk for a while without hearing a comeback, the immediate comeback that shuts down all real conversation. So the combination of balance and really working on the balance so that, one is not outnumbered 9-10-1, which is the experience that I often have in the outside world, if I can get those odds. Actually having a balance numerically and having structure to the way the interactions take place can actually be kind of miraculous. And one of the things I ask, is I ask, how much are you willing to open up your heart and your mind to people who think differently than yourself?
Which is a key question. I think that's one of the challenges, that we have faced here over the last, that's a challenge that humanity has almost always faced. But I think the advent of the internet has helped to create a splintering effect that allows individuals to listen to the talking head of choice, and that's their only source of information. And so they never get the opportunity to have any level of balanced thought process associated with a given topic, whatever that topic happens to be. Paul, thank you for that. That was very helpful. That helps explain a lot to me. I noticed on the website that there are a number of activities or whatever you want, they call programs. There was Alliance program, a corporate program, a one-on-one adventure, the different levels of engagement opportunity. And can somebody kind of give me a little perspective on these different layers and what the objective is with that?
Can I ask Maxime to point out? Because Maxime's got a heck of a story. Think about it. This organization has a flag planted in Berkeley, California.
Well, but you're not. First, I think we ought to answer David's question. And in terms of the variety of programs that are offered, I think Carlos is better prepared to actually answer that directly. Before I defer to Carlos, though, I was going to use the word structure as well, and Paul used it. I think there's not only the balance issue, but to learn how to listen to someone without interrupting, without grimacing, without walking away. That structure is absolutely critical, and most of us don't do it.
Right.
Most of us don't force ourselves to listen to a different opinion neutrally, right? And that for 5 minutes, maybe, big deal. But we don't do it because while we're listening, we're constructing answers in our head. We're contradicting what we're hearing in our head, and we're not really listening. If we're forced to listen and then maybe spend a few minutes summing up what we've heard without agreeing necessarily, just force us to reflect what we've heard. It forces us to listen. And then it makes the person who is talking feel heard, feel recognized. Right. And just that, I have found, leads to phenomenal results. Most people feel very satisfied after having done just that type of exercise.
I believe it. I can see how that would be. I think because what tends to happen for most people is that in a scenario where a different point of view is being presented, if they don't have that kind of structure, they can feel threatened, right? So then you get into a fight or flight type of a phenomenon. I got to get out of here. This isn't going to go well. Or you start arguing, and that sort of thing. As opposed to, like seeing what you were saying, it gives the individual the opportunity to express their perspective. The other people who are listening don't have to agree with it. It's the hearing of it that then helps potentially for them to have a different perspective on the entire situation, because you're seeing things from different angles. Whether it changes your mind or not is not the point, I think. The point is to allow for a broader vision. Am I seeing this correctly?
Oh, man. And before, Carlos, I let you go on, I'm sorry. When I first was introduced to the organization, I heard the word mediator used, and Paul said something like, mediators aren't necessarily good leaders of Braver Angels meetings. The reason being, mediators try to come to a common solution.
Oh, yes.
That's the nature of mediation. The nature of Braver Angels is not to necessarily come to an agreement. The whole goal is to live with different viewpoints. And so if there's a word called, Rotary International, which I'm also a member of, has a program that they refer to as conflict resolution. We're trying to change that to conflict transformation. Conflict can be productive.
Sure.
In fact, it should be productive, and we don't want to end it, but we want to use it positively. Okay, I'm rapping too much.
No,
Carlos, he
that's
wanted to know
that's
about the
great.
various programs.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Carlos
let
to
me
do
let me
that.
just
But
jump in. I know
sure.
Carlos is up, but just really quickly, a really key phrase: accurate disagreement.
Accurate disagreement.
So to actually understand on the deepest level we can why we disagree with someone else. And often that's because we have different life experiences, or maybe we have slightly different values, but to get away from disagreement based on sound bites and all kinds of other nonsense that forms people's opinions. So accurate disagreement is one of my favorite phrases from Braver Angels, at which point I now shut up and let Carlos speak.
That's a great I've never heard that term used before. Accurate disagreement. I think that's a really good one. I'm going to let Carlos speak in just a moment, but I want to remind my viewers that if there are any questions about anything we're talking about, you can go up to the Braver Angels website or send email to info@referencepointtv.com. I will get the question answered from one of our panelists or someone else at Braver Angels for you. Carlos, yes, tell me a little bit about all of these different programs.
The thing that I love about the programs, they're designed with red-blue balance. I happen to be on a workshop design team now, and the topic is social media.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever Braver Angels does something, it's red-blue balance. From the moment that the idea, whether it's germinated in the red head or the blue head, the team that designs it, balanced. The workshops are especially red-blue, and it provides the safety. It provides the safety, whether it's family and politics, skills for bridging the divide, depolarization, which is one of my new favorites, and of course, red-blue workshop. But I want to point at something else. This gentleman on the screen here, there's actually both of them. Paul is one of our trained moderators as a red.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the very few as a red.
Mm-hmm.
Maxime, tell the audience what you did. You really wanted to become a Braver Angel. Tell the story. Imagine this organization has a flag planted in the notorious bastion known as Berkeley, California. And Maxime is the reason why it's there. Maxime, tell the story.
Well, I got curious about the organization. I wanted to talk to people who disagreed with me, and I decided to form what they call an alliance in Berkeley. Mm-hmm. Now, in Berkeley is a little weird. It's not, it's weird, and it's very hard to find a quote red in Berkeley, especially a red who admits being red. Mm-hmm. Because there are conservatives who live in Berkeley. They're just afraid to let anybody else know because they'll be booted out of town.
Right.
So actually, when I wanted to start an alliance, I was more interested in discourse across difference than necessarily discourse between Republicans and Democrats or Trump's versus Clinton's. And actually, I wanted to form a dark blue, light blue alliance. Dark blue being Bernie Sanders people, more mm-hmm. radical, let's say, and then light blue was Biden. So that was not allowed by the organization, which is also interesting. And so I was forced to find reds. I'm fortunate. I do work in Texas. I go to Texas. I say, hi, I'm a commie atheist Jew boy from Berkeley. They say, Maxime, please take Jesus into your heart. You're a nice guy. Hell is a horrible place. They give me their Bibles. Everybody's praying for me. We are different. And those are cultural differences.
Right.
Paul, you use the word values. I'm not sure that people have such different values, but we have different ways of dealing with reality. We have different realities. And so I'm lucky because I could bring Texans by Zoom into our meetings. And then I discovered right-wingers in Berkeley who were willing to come out.
Yeah, wow.
And so we have a pretty balanced alliance. And I ended up being pals with someone who is so radically opposite my progressive way of thinking. that it's almost it's just incredible. And we have weekly meetings now. We're deep friends. We met through the Alliance. He got brought in only because he's red. He's almost hysterically red. He just can't stand people like me in terms of our politics. He thinks we're hypocrites. We're entitled. Us liberals, we're spreading horrible things all over the planet, right? And he, by the way, part of what he says is correct. When I go to other places, I realize how I, as a sort of Berkeley liberal elite New York Times reader, am perceived. And they're right, because my arrogance is disgusting. Okay, that's another story. He reminds me of
that Gentlemen, we've got just about I don't know, maybe 3 minutes left in our show here, when the conversation is getting to a level of depth that I'm wondering if you might be willing to stick around after we wrap this up to take another short break and get into this a little bit more deeply.
It's always fun.
One of the things I'm interested in learning about, and I think maybe it's the key topic for the next quick session that we're going to do immediately after this one, has to do with who can participate. I mean, I see the information about the different programs. I'll ask you, how does one get involved? How does Braver Angels? How do people find Braver Angels and all that sort of stuff that we're going to want to talk about in the next segment. But so, Carlos, I'm interested from your perspective. I got from Maxime that there has been this connection that he has been able to make with someone on the that's has a divergent perspective, and they've become. He used the term friends, but at least they understand each other. And have you had a similar experience from your perspective?
Yes, because I don't have to hide anymore.
Oh.
Think about it. I am not white.
Right.
I'm not a classic deplorable. In fact, I went to Stanford University.
Oh, no. Oh,
yes. Yeah. And
Cal, Berkeley, Stanford.
And I walked the streets of San Francisco. I can't talk anything red here. And I don't.
Right.
To this day, I don't go into cafes and volunteer my opinion, because the conversation will not only disappear, it just goes sideways.
Yeah.
So Bravery, especially through Zoom, it's been a benefit. I'm not only connecting with other reds, I'm connecting with other blues that are not like the blues in San Francisco.
Oh, we're learning that there are different shades of blue and shades of red.
Yes.
Paul, how about you? Have you experienced this opportunity to connect with someone of a different perspective?
Probably more times than I can remember. One of the people I work with most often. So I'm one of the co-chairs of the San Francisco Alliance. And there is a blue coat. Well, actually, we have a bunch, but I'll just mention for now. Leslie, who I work with, who is a blue. And, we work together very well. And, we have a humorous relationship, where a little jab gets in every now and then, but doesn't draw blood, just enough to kind of have fun.
That's cool.
I've done a bunch of one-on-one conversations. I mean, I literally, I can't even tell you how many of them. And a lot of them have been with blues throughout the organization. I've also done several of we have a black-white conversation one-on-one.
Very cool.
Several
Very
of those.
cool. We're going to want to dive into this a little bit more, but I'm going to have to call us a little bit short on this time because we've run out of time in this segment. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me here at Reference Point. If you'll hang on for a few minutes, we'll start another segment. And Paul, I want to pick up exactly where we left off. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're learning something here from our panelists about this organization called Braver Angels. And stay tuned because we'll have another segment, and we'll see you next time on Reference Point.